also are coming to you on Zoom, and we're also YouTube channel and Facebook. Take your choice. But I'm glad to see the smiling faces here joining us tonight. So we have good agenda tonight. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Sorry, Mr. Keller.
Here.
Mrs. Clack.
Here.
Mr. Cromer.
Here.
Mr. Skips.
Here.
Mrs. Welch.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you very much. If we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and after the pledge, if you'll remain standing for the invocation that Pro Tem Jeff Jacobson will lead us in. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing.
Please join us in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful to gather tonight as elected representatives of our community, along with concerned citizens and residents. May we be inspired and guided in our thoughts and our decisions tonight for those to be in the best interest of our community. We are grateful for the responsibility that we've been entrusted with, the sacred trust to protect and preserve the rights and privileges and benefits of our citizens here in our community. We pray, Father, for those who are away from their families at this time, serving in the armed forces, that they may be safe. And for those who are experiencing extreme weather conditions in our country, that they will be protected and that relief will be provided to them. We pray that we will take this time to come together as a community to consider the needs of others before our own, that we will be kind and respectful and helpful and considerate and think of ways in which we can lift up others instead of tear down. And we say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Go to item 4. This is an action item for approval agenda. You'll find on pages 1 and 2.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Jacobson,
Second, Skips.
second by Skips.
Move to amend the agenda by changing item 12, new business D, request to purchase public works vehicle, to the consent agenda.
Have a second?
Second, Skips.
Okay, move to item D, consent, seconded by Skips. Any opposition? So, Madam Clerk, call that.
Mrs. Clack.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Welch. Yes. Mr. Skips.
Yes.
Mr. Cromer.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone wish to change their vote? I see none. So now we call the original.
Move to make another amendment.
Another
Mayor, sorry, I forgot.
Sir.
Under new business, A, ordinance 2304, an ordinance of the city of North Pole amending the harassment policy
Oh,
for
yes.
city employees. Move to change the introduction of this ordinance to March 6th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, motion to move it to March 6th, seconded by Welch. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, call that.
Mrs. Clack. Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Welch. Yes. Mr. Skips.
Yes.
Mr. Cromer.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone change their vote? Seeing none? Okay, well, we now have an agenda. We go to item 5, an action item for the approval of the minutes from the 1/17/2023 meeting. You'll find those minutes, if you'll please display them, Madam Clerk, on pages 3 to 9. So that we can see if there's anything that needs to be changed on that. Pages 3 to 9, Madam Clerk.
Move to approve the minutes of January 17th.
The motion,
Skips.
seconded by Skips. Any discussion on the minutes? Any changes that need to be made? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mr. Skips.
Yes.
Mr. Cromer.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mrs. Clack. Mrs. Welch. Yes. Mr. Mayor.
But of course, anyone want to change? Nope. Congratulations. The minutes are now adopted from January 17th. We go to item 6, communications from the mayor. And first off, we have some staff service awards. So, Danny, you'll join me? And if we could have Melanie Swanson come forward. Melanie's been with us. Melanie, you've been with us since February 5th, 2018. That's 5 years. Thank you. Now,
So that's another 5 coming up. Is that it? Okay, we'll take it.
I don't think I'll live that. Thank you very much. Someone who's not with us tonight is a 5-year service award for Alan Zushak. He's the administrative officer of tonight. Neither. I can remember. I'm smiling. I said, you better make always nice to be able to recognize her. Get off of here. I'm not gonna go through my communications, all things like I did in the last 2 weeks, what I'm gonna do, I'll wait for the next time we meet. And we'll go to any members' questions, the council members' questions of the mayor. And don't ask who cuts my hair. Thank you. So moving on, Madam Clerk, do we have any citizens that are here to comment on items not on the agenda?
No, we do not.
We do not. So seeing that, citizens' comments are now deemed closed. So now we go to our department heads. Danny, I'll pick on you first. Danny Wallace, our Director of City Services.
Good evening, everyone. I'll cover the 3 departments, and then I do have just a really quick presentation on some of the streetlight improvements that we're going to be doing in the city. So for the building department, we did some internal meetings on process flow for building permits. Believe it or not, we actually have a very good system in place, but it's not documented. So we're working on ensuring that all of our building permits, when they go out for the city, that there's some consistency. Again, Melanie, who just was, got the employee recognition, she is the one that's been holding the building department together. And again, I'm prying everything out of her mind as far as how we do business as far as building permits. This is the slow season, so it's an excellent time to do that. For Public Works, snow plowing occurred over the weekend, and we alerted the community via social media of both DOT and city activities. And actually today, the Public Works folks were still out there pushing snow on sidewalks, and there are no complaints so far that I'm aware of, but we always get a couple every time we do operations, but it did go well. We're also working on an invitation to bid for street sweeping in the spring and potentially fall for the city, depending on how things go both in the spring and the fall. Each year we scramble to get these services, and putting this out to bid will be more timely and cost effective. Last year, we spent about $18,400 on street sweeping. We're hoping that if we put this out to bid, that we'll be able to save some money and again, be able to lock in the folks that we need help with in the spring, especially after breakup. And then finally, for Public Works, Cody Lauji, our PW supervisor, will take some well-deserved leave beginning in mid-February. And we've got a coverage plan, and the city should not see any change in services while the PW supervisor is on leave. For the utility, no significant utility issues over the weekend. And we are finalizing a contract. It's not been signed yet, but we're working on a contract with Respect, which is an engineering firm that we routinely use. They're the folks that are helping us with Moose Creek, and we routinely tap into their expertise. This is a non-binding contract, but it does save money, and it'll be something that when we get in place, it'll be easier to reach out for engineering support for some of the projects. For example, our stormwater survey of the city, which we're still waiting for the grant money, but that is on track. Respect is on tap to help us with that stormwater survey. Again, do the survey first to look what we need to do in order to prevent some of the things that happened last spring. And then finally, for the utilities, last week we had our second working group meeting for discussions on ways to mitigate the chronic sewer deficits that we've seen in sewer utilities revenues. This group included the mayor, the utility supervisor, Paul Trissel, Melanie Swanson, who was just here, Tricia Fogarty, Michelle Petey, and myself. And we reviewed 6 potential options. We discussed those, we fleshed those out, and then during the next meeting, which will occur this week, we'll rank those options. Our intent is to come back with some options for the council that we can integrate in the next budget cycle, and also that we can look at and how we integrate over the next year, how we monitor some of those options. And again, we'll come back to you with that, but just to let you know, we are taking the sewer deficit very seriously, and we're looking at options to mitigate that. That's all I have for the 3 departments. And I do have one quick presentation, and then I'll take questions. All the council members should have a copy of this. And this is something that has been talked about before here in the chambers. It's been a project for several years, but it's finally coming to fruition this summer. Streetlight standardization project. If you look on the purple, the purple is where on this chart is where new streetlights are going to be going to in the downtown city core area. And again, a reminder that streetlights, although they do cause some light pollution, they increase safety in the area and they decrease crime. So the intent of the city is to make sure that we are serving the citizens certainly as much as possible and ensuring that we have safe streets. Both during, especially during the winter times when in hours of darkness that occur. These are high powered but low cost. Again, there is going to be an additional bill, a utility bill that comes with these. But if you look at the number of lights that get installed, it's a significant change as far as significant numbers of lights. But again, the price for the electricity is not that much higher than you'd expect. If you can go to the second slide. If you look at that second slide in your packet, go ahead and hit the second slide. So the second slide in your packet compares the legacy lights, which are shown in yellow, to the new lights that are going in. So if you'll see on here, we've got the downtown area is pretty well covered for street lights after this project. So I'll entertain any questions about either the streetlight project or some of the other things that I briefed about the 3 departments within city services.
Okay, Danny, I want to say one thing so that people know historically that in Bryce Ward's time, he did put together the $175,000 for this project in 2017. And for whatever reason, there was a disconnect between the city and DOT. So they didn't bring it back up to us till 21 was almost over with. So you can see what we thought was going to cost whatever. We still have our approximate 9% match in that. So that's going to help us with that. And that's my only comment on the lights. Any questions or comments for Danny? Ms. Welch is first there.
So Danny, you were talking about light pollution. I know that there's some of these specific lights that can actually be very specific downwards that does not provide light pollution up by having, I don't know whether they're some kind of baffle on them or whatever. Is that a part of our?
The way these lights will look is very similar to the current ones that we have. And again, they do project downward. They're not just a street lamp that projects everywhere. So you're exactly right. These are some of the newest, the newest technology. The advantage of waiting so long is that we do have that newer technology. I don't anticipate that being a big issue, but if I thought about this project, that would be potentially one concern of the citizens is what does this do to the light pollution? And our response to that is there may be some changes, but the safety and the security gained by these lights far outweigh those types of changes.
Like, for example, in my neighborhood, we have the lights. It seems like the side of the light, it's a light that goes straight out like this, but it looks like the side of the light also has light on it. And to me, that would make sense that you had a light with something that you really can't see it, that it doesn't light up on the side. Like that, to avoid that extra light pollution. It should be something that could be done as we create these lights, because we are a city that has a lot of tourists and stuff like that, and like to see the northern lights. And yes, we do have to be safe, but that's only on that ground level, so we don't need it up that way or out to the side so much. So
Okay, and I'll find out the types of lights that they're using for that.
thank you.
Jeff Jacobs, our pro tem, has something for you.
Mr. Wallace, when we do our street sweeping, will that include our sidewalks and bike paths within city limits or just the street?
The plan again is on here. They're focused on certainly the streets, but if you look at each of these areas, the light will project down the street. So if there's a sidewalk on here, are you saying a long term?
No, I'm talking about sweeping.
Sweeping.
Sorry, I didn't say that clear. So our street sweeping that we're going to put out to bid, will that include sweeping our sidewalks and bike paths?
It will be the same as we did last year. So I'm gonna have to go back and look whether that covered paths and the sidewalks and walking paths. So I will find out. The only thing I could find from last year again was a bill for groundhogs for $18,400, and I'll get with our PW folks to see what that actually covers.
Thank you.
And because you said that, it prompts me about the last Fast Policy Board meeting we were at, when Jerry Cleworth asked, well, where did this MT 46 come from? Which for us to have along Santa Claus Lane, our bike path to be baffled. And so he said, well, I can't tell you exactly where it came from, but it was theirs, MT midterm. It was something that's supposed to happen next year. So I have to always be parochial and make sure we get our share of that so that we can have it. Baffled could be anything from a little ridge, and maybe Mr. Skips, you can tell me, I'm always turning to you like you're the expert from DOT, what the baffling could be. It could be a little ridge or painted things or whatever, to have a bike path separated from the actual vehicular traffic. Do you know what that could be when they're saying about baffled lane? I think I know. I've seen it of all places down in Soldotna, of all places. But I'll check with Joe Kemp and I'll figure it out. Thanks. Any other things for Mr. Danny?
I had a
Anton.
question concerning the neighborhoods that are getting the lights. Does that include just everything in this picture, or does that include the Ford subdivision as well? Because I know that was on a plan at some point.
That was on a plan. Again, I think prices have gone up
Yep.
and this was the priority. We have options to pursue the three other areas within North Pole. Again, from the DOT and the FAST perspective, they weren't sure that there was local support for some of this stuff. So this is something that we need to go back and find out, because we had also talked about Highway Park and some of the other ones.
Yeah, no,
So
I'm kind of curious what kind of lights will be coming just because of the light pollution. I know a lot of my neighbors are very keen on making sure we can see the northern lights. So, thank you.
Thank you, Danny. I'll just to inform you that I will be joining you tomorrow with respect from St. Wilson's office at 2:00. Thank you very much. And if you want to stay with us after for the next idea, we can do that too. For what we're trying to do with combined heat and power. It's up to you.
Okay.
Just to give you a heads up. Anything else? Thank you, Danny. Guess who's next? Michelle, you get to go next.
Hello. So I'm filling in for Tricia, and I emailed out the financial statements last week. You should have all gotten them. If you didn't, let me know and I'll get them back out to you. Same with the sales tax and the interest spreadsheet. We've updated that and sent it out to you. And we're starting on January. Once we wrap that up, we'll be working on the audit. And I've started working on the audit while she's away, just playing with the new computer system and the reporting compared to the old computer system and the reporting, trying to make them jive together. So, and she will be back February 15th. If you have any questions, I really don't have much more than that.
Do we have, I know that you sent me a thing today that when Gary gets
Mhm.
back, he gets back about the same time.
He gets back, I believe, the 14th.
In
yeah.
your best estimation, when should we have everything turned over to the auditor? Is April the 18th a good date? That's like,
I'm assuming sometime in April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, because then the part of it is this council's supposed to at least have a draft copy before June 30th.
Yeah.
And then July 3rd, he'd actually come in and present the audit to us
Yep.
if everything works.
Yeah, he's supposed to send us the schedule
Right.
when he gets back. We
Okay.
called him last week before Tricia
Thank you
left,
very
so.
much for that. Now we have questions for you. Anyone questions, concerns? Everything's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you know, our police chief and fire chief and even our assistant fire chief aren't here tonight, so we're going to move right along with that tonight. HR, is Ellie with us?
I am, yes.
Thank you. You got the floor, or you got the screen, or whatever you want to call it. It's you.
I'm not going to come on video because I just got home from the hospital right before the meeting. So if you guys can be patient with that for me.
Sure.
So HR, I've been working on IDs for the water and sewer and public works gentlemen for the time being, and then towards the rest of the staff after finding out that some of our distributors are starting to require identification that they work for the city of North Pole. This is a wonderful thing in multiple ways. It helps identify them if there's any emergency. It also gives them an ID to show customers should they ever have to address a customer, they can prove who they are and where they're from. On that, I'm currently just waiting on the ribbon to come in, and then I'll come in the office and print out the IDs. I've also kept track of the awards. I sent those to you guys, so those will be the only two until June, and in June we'll have another one. Other than that, I've just been working on the policy updates and stuff that have been requested and trying to keep on top of what I can and helping out with other departments.
Thank you very much. And thank you for sending me the things that for our clerk, Melissa, for her to get qualified for a 2-step increase. I was showing her today that when I was sending a reply to you, I sent it 4 times. If I'm not here, for some reason, it's not making the connection to our server. We don't know why. And Mrs. Welch was having the same problem with her laptop. So my tablet, my phone wouldn't connect from home, but once I came into City Hall, it would. So I don't know how many times you got the same request from me. Do you know by chance?
I only received it once.
Right, so it shows it was sent 4 times, but that's what it can't do for some reason. I have to talk to ampersand about that, so thank you for your patience.
No
And
problem.
I'll pass it on to Michelle in Tricia's absence to get that taken care of at payroll. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Any questions for our HR, for Ellie, before she goes? Thank you, Ellie. Hope everything's going fine. So we come to our city clerk, Melissa.
My presets are not working, so hold on a second while I find me.
Finding herself again.
There I am. Okay. So good evening, good evening, everybody. So this week I met with Revise and we are entering the final stages of our website redo. I'm super excited about that. We should be getting on the schedule to work on some training at the end of the month into the beginning of March. It's nice that we have so many people here tonight, and I actually have a little plea for everybody. In our new website, we are severely lacking pictures. So council members, members of the public, if you guys have pictures that you've taken out and about in the city, if, 4th of July festivals, Winterfest, anything like that, I'm really looking for some pictures. I would love to have our website have just as many pictures so that people can, kind of see what we're all about on the website. So, but I'm really lacking them. So if you guys have any pictures on your phone or your computers, please forward them to me. That would be awesome. For council members, don't forget, we don't have a meeting on the 21st. We rescheduled it until the 27th. And I am out of here on Friday and I will be gone all next week. In case you need to get a hold of me, I will not be available and I will not be checking my email from Mexico. Sorry.
I have a question. Who gets to carry your bags to Mexico?
No, a couple of people I can rely on for that.
Okay. Good. And so, and one thing that we discussed for the future for bed tax that we can incorporate is when we go out to solicit to the organizations to turn in their packets, we'll tell them when we solicit the end of September, we'll say, oh, by the way, because we know at that juncture how much we have for bed tax. This is how much we have, so that people won't put in this pie in the sky thing and they're beating each other over the head for a finite amount of money is what we have, but they want an infinite amount of money. So we're going to try to work that out, correct?
Correct. I already have a little reminder in my calendar to kind of revamp the application process as well as the directions for the council member process.
We learn as we go, huh?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any questions for the clerk? Seeing none, now we go to our borough representative, Mrs. Welch.
And this month it is me again. Soon you will find that it's going to be other people doing it. I told the borough assembly that we're going to divide it up and other people are going to get a chance to go before them. And with that in mind, they changed the rules for which was a ordinance that they had up a while ago, that they wanted to limit our participation and input at the borough. At least they moved one thing out of there. It said that for a city or a school board member to be able to be the representative and present something to the borough, they wanted us to have our body's approval for what we were going to say or our input, whether it pertained to us or not. So they took that away, that it was just a matter about that it was to benefit our community, not that that each individual group would have had a chance to discuss it. The problem with that was that by the time they put something on their agenda and we had a meeting and noticing it properly, it couldn't happen. So they finally got wise enough, took it out. But there's a 5-minute limit unless there's a special exemption to that. Just so my fellow council members who's going to do that, make sure you make it short and sweet. The borough also agreed to purchase land and to pass the ordinance on spending the money on having a new animal shelter. So that passed last time around, so we will get a new animal shelter. It will be on the south side off of the Old Rich, kind of right where the road comes off of Cushman. It takes that little, almost like a, I don't know what you want to call it, a hairpin thing, turn in the road before it straightens back out. In that area to the right, I think it's called Braddock Street down there. In that area, there's about enough, I think it's 25 acres of land that they're going to actually put it on. Used to have a bunch of trees and a little building, and the owner tore that all down, but it was approved, and now Bettisworth is going to actually build the animal shelter itself, but it's going to be a chance for the community to give input on their suggestions on what we need and stuff like that. And I think that was pretty much the most important one. They were trying to put money into the recycling, and they were discussing the fact that it wasn't something that we could get enough money out of it. So we were pretty much taxpayers were paying for people to have the opportunity to recycle. And also they get it straightened out, streamlined in such a way that it makes more sense. That particular ordinance was defeated. So I think that's about it that is important to us out here in North Pole. Congratulations maybe to the people out in, oh, it just disappeared from me here, I'm sorry. Out in Esther, their community park is now tax exempt, and it's going to be retroactive. They were pretty excited about that. They do some great things out there for the whole borough, for everybody who wants to come, their music festivals and stuff. So it's now owned by a group of people or a community organization out there, and it will always be a park, and they don't have to tax themselves on it. So that is my report.
So, thank you. Any questions from the borough rep? I don't see any. Thank you for such a great report. Things are moving along. Now we go, Madam Clerk, ongoing projects report. Who's up first?
We have Gary Wilkin with us tonight.
Mr. Gary Wilkin, welcome to the chambers. You ever see such a nice setup? Huh?
What a great table.
Yeah, you know who built that table?
No.
Mayor
Santa.
Bryce Ward.
Really?
Yeah, but you know who designed that seal?
No,
Outlaw Signs, Bill Outlaw designed it.
really?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
Thanks for allowing me to spend the next 20 or 30 minutes with you working and talking about the Kinross Port Hall. But before I get started on that, I would just like to thank you again for your hospitality. Something we've looked forward to for quite some time as we've assembled information and tried to get it to the people. A special shout out tonight to Chandra, and the Clacks, Terry and Chandra walked into our life about 30 years ago, and it was just her and Terry, and Terry worked for Sue and I for 30 years. Yeah, never missed a day, and as was regular as clockwork. And I retired a little after I did, and what a joy. And we watched their two daughters be born, watched them grow, now married and providing all those benefits. So Sue and I were both tickled when we said, we think that's Chandra Clack. And yeah, and so it was. And it's exactly the kind of people that we all aspire to have sitting where you sit. So yeah, you bet. Thank you. Tonight, I'm here as a representative of advocates for Safe Alaska Highways, and there's a few other people I'd just like to call out. They're going to talk to you later when we get down to the business part. To my left are Lynn and David Kornberg. In the back is Mary Farrell, right there. And then let's see, Patrice Lee is on Zoom, And I think, oh geez, I almost forgot. And of course, Sue.
Yeah.
And so she's here to get me with a spit wad when I run over 30 minutes. It's the same woman that when somebody said, so Sue, how long have you and Gary been married? And she said, 54 years. The person said, oh, wow, that's something. Sue said, well, you know, it's goes by, it's just been like 10 minutes. It goes by 10 minutes. Wow. And then she says, underwater. So. So let's take down business. And
Yeah.
again, thanks for your hospitality. Oh, back here, over here, and he may not introduce himself, but Ken Greenleaf. Ken called today. Ken is the new city administrator, if you haven't met him, for Delta. So if you want to know if you Zoom
When did you
these, I
start,
said, I
Ken?
think.
When did you start? May, okay, good.
And he, so he called today and I said, well, you want to just Zoom him? I think they Zoom him. He goes, no, I want to be there. And he says, I can get a lot of work done on the way, which I just ignored that. So, I know Ken, nice of him to be here. I just met him tonight myself. So, okay, well, let's get down to business. So each of you have a folder that we put together. There's
Madam
much.
Clerk, do you have any of this to show or not? For your Zoomer?
Oh, no, I don't.
Oh, I didn't bring it.
Okay, I didn't know.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So-
Just in case anybody out there is watching this later, because you know, this is YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead.
And the other thing I didn't do is put numbers on the pages.
Okay,
It's my fault. I know. I wish I had somebody to blame it on. I can't. So, what I thought I'd do tonight, there's too much in here to cover page by page. So, the benefit of the binder, as I see it, is I'm just going to hit the high spots today, take about 20 minutes or so. And going to direct you in on certain points on the pages, things that we think are important and bring you up to snuff. So let's begin. We have a cover page, which we'll talk about here as we get into the presentation. There's a page that just shows the route from Tetlin to Fort Knox. You'll recognize that, and there's not much to say about that other than just gives you 30,000 feet where it goes. It's about 248 miles from mine mouth to the mill at Fort Knox. Next page is, I would encourage you, there's two pages. It's a broad view of the ore haul. And I think you all know, but the Kinross is proposing to bring ore from the new Mancho mines near South Tetlin to the mill. And it amounts to, as we'll get into this, 10 million pounds of ore a day brought over the road to Fort Knox. And we'll get into that detail in a minute, but these two pages are just for you to read. It's a broad overview of where we are, where we started. This, which is your cover page, introduces the concept of Kinross, Alaska. Kinross 2 years ago changed their focus. And in your packet here, you'll see the announcement of that some 2 years ago. But it used to be Kinross Fort Knox, right? Wonderful, 26 years, wonderful, wonderful. But they changed their focus, and it's now Kinross, Alaska. And the circle there is a 300-mile radius from Fairbanks. And their goal is to bring gold ore from any and all mines within that 300-mile radius, bring it to Fort Knox by road, and they have talked about by river, but by road primarily, and process that ore at Fort Knox. That represents 43% of Alaska's landmass is within that 300-mile radius. There's hundreds of mines out there over the next 40 or 50 years. And that is the new Kinross strategy. And I'll point that out as we get in here, where the corporate executives talk about that very strategy. So it's a hub of mining that will be supported by ore hauling on our highways. That's what we are absolutely against. Let's take just a couple minutes and do a top level look at what the ore haul route profile looks like. It's one-way distance, 248 miles, Fort Knox to the Manh Choh mines. It's interior highways, the Alcan, the Richardson, and the Steese. The mill requirement, the feedstock is 5,000 tons a day. That's 10 million pounds. That was given to DOT in March of 21 as to design for that. The frequency of the transport is 24 hours per day, every day, 7 days a week for 365 days a year. That's 70,080 trips a year. The ore haulers, if you're out on the highway, the ore haulers, and we'll get into how these numbers come to pass later, but the ore haulers, you'll encounter one between here and Delta. You'll encounter one every 5 miles. That's one going your way every 10 miles and one coming the other way every 10 miles. So you'll see one every five miles. You'll see an ore hauler. To say it a little differently, if you stood in one place out here by the road, if you stood in one place, one of these trucks would go by you every 7.5 minutes. That's not much, it's much, but it's different on a 4-lane. But think of it along Salt Shack straight there, something along there. One will go by every 7.5 minutes, and that becomes important when we start talking about school buses. The transport profile, the equipment is 2 special bit ore haulers. Each truck will haul 25 tons for a total gross vehicle weight of 169,000 pounds loaded, call it 80 tons, 82 tons, and then return 30 tons. So we'll talk about a little bit about that in a moment. They're a 95-foot overhaul length. And for those truck guys in the world, they're a B hitch, which tightens up the trailers, or makes it more difficult to control. The highway spacing, if you drive to Delta, as I said, you'll encounter 20 of these, and so one every 5 miles. And again, one will pass by you if you're changing your tire, one's going to go by every 7.5 minutes. I want to switch now to mine economics and longevity. I want to quote Michael Kozak. He gives an equity. Well, let me back up. One of the things you're going to hear, and you have heard, is that this is a 4 or 5 year deal. That's all it is. 4 or 5 years. One and done. We'll come in, mine it, we'll be done. That's not true at all. Mr. Mike Kozak, equity analyst for Cantor Fitzgerald, on February 6th of 22, and he analyzes equities, recommends to his customers what to buy and what to sell. He said he had a recommendation for a buy, and he said this in his recommendation in paragraph 3: a project, Manh Choh, that has extremely low operating costs and is on course to become, quote unquote, the world's highest grade open pit gold mine. Paragraph 5, safe publication. Given its tier 1 mining jurisdiction and the best in the world open pit gold grade, and then he goes on to talk about his recommendation. So this is well beyond 4 to 5 years. Saturday, we were just given some mining data that I don't have in here. I'll pass it out afterwards. It's very revealing. But let me leave you with the thought, this is much more than a 4 or 5 year deal. This is a 40 or 50 year deal, folks. And if there's one thing that I leave you with tonight, prove me wrong, Ken Ross, prove me wrong that this is not a 40 or 50 year deal. The Gill effect. Ken Ross wants you to think that if the ore haul doesn't come through, Ken Ross, the Fort Knox is going to evaporate, it's going to die, is going to this, that. That's not the case at all. They invested $100 million with a mine 11 miles away, and they're now bringing that to the mill, to the Fort Knox as we know it. And the Gill investment is now producing yielding ore that they can put in their mill and do their heap leach. And so we said to ourselves, well, somebody must have written about this. So indeed they did. And I'd like for you, when the time comes, you can't do it now, but time comes, there's 5 pages here. And what this is, we went back and we looked at all of the publications that had to do with the Fort Knox Gill, and it started in June 12th of 18 and ended in February of 22. What you'll see here is from 15 different publications, as diverse as you could be, newspapers, technical articles, all diverse. It's 16 articles in 15 papers over 4 years. Not one mention of an ore haul having to influence the production of the longevity of Fort Knox. Indeed, through that whole thing, and you'll see it here, it's referenced that the longevity of Fort Knox is somewhere out in 2030. Over and over, they talk about that, mainly because of the Gill deposit. So I'm no miner. I sold bread and potato chips, as Chandra knows. But I've been told that by many people that to go out 8 years, 9 years on mine longevity is an eternity. So when you read this, just think about, this is what the independent press said about the effect of an ore haul, and an ore haul does not save Fort Knox. There's no proof of that. All right. One piece that's really, really important, and the developer doesn't want to talk about it from day one. This is unprecedented. This ore haul is unprecedented. And that came up a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we challenged them over and over. And each time they couldn't come up with anything that showed that they had experience. At the legislative hearing we had put on Representative Greyer last February, a year ago, they again said they had experience in ore hauls. We asked them again, show us. They showed us 3 examples, and none of them were even close to what we're talking about. Certainly none in the Arctic environment. But so let me just hit a couple of high parts. But I would like you to spend some time on this, because we are the guinea pigs, folks. We are the guinea pigs. This has never been done before. It's 13% on urban roads, 10% on a 4-lane divided highway, 77% on rural roads with minimal shoulders, no pullouts. A broad classification of rolling stock. It's done 100% in subarctic conditions, just south of the Arctic Circle, has frequent dry and blowing snow, extended and lingering ice events, extended below zero operations. We're talking about 180-ton trucks, which is about double what you normally see on Alaskan roads today, particularly in the winter. We talked about the ore haul requirement, 10 million pounds a day. It's 192 truck loads per day, 96 up, 96 back. So that goes right by the road here. Minimum passing lane availability, we'll talk a little bit about that. They're putting in passing lanes at about a $40 million cost. That's going to come out of your STIP, our STIP. That's where it's coming from. And that means that road over there doesn't get plowed. It goes from a class A to a class B, because we're over there because we just used $40 million for passing lanes. And well, I'll come back. And then the foot stomp, and this is crazy. There's 110 school bus stops between the Eielson Gate and Delta, 110. These are full up. I mean, we've all been there. We've all seen them. There's no fiddling around here. Red lights come on, you stop and you wait, and the kids get out, they go in front of the bus, they go over here, and they don't get going again until all of those little brats are set down in, all those little children are set down in the seats, right?
Yeah.
5 minutes, 6 minutes, and there's no cheating. So you've got a 80-ton truck coming this way, and you got a 30-ton coming this way. They stop and they come to a full dead stop. Now what? And there's one every 7.5 minutes. So if those children take more than 7.5 minutes, now you got 2 sitting there. Kinross, and we have asked over and over and over for how are you going to handle school buses? And they have done nothing but pat us on the head, and also the school districts. And so That's another one to leave. There's the school bus in the snowstorm. It just kind of rattles your knees to think that they have been asking them for 2.5 years, don't have a school bus plan. So let's talk for just a moment about the 4 to 5 year issue again. In your packet, and I'm not going to spend much time on this other than just if you would be good enough to read it. We're in the Tintina Gold Belt. I didn't know this till I got involved in this. That's why we have Northern Lights here, because of the Tintina Mineral Belt here. So, and in this belt, you're going to see, you'll see Mancho, you'll see Fort Knox, you'll see Shamrock. These are the mines either currently in play or under development. These are the mines that will access our highways when they come online. One of these is Shamrock down by and you'll read it here. It is a tremendous gold structure just off the Richardson Highway, and it's near Birch Lake. So there's the next one they're going to develop, and it's 100% owned by Contango. And this will be the third summer of it being drilled. So they know what's there, and they're just a hop, skip, and the jump away from putting another 4 trucks on the road, because there are no maximums here, folks. There's a little piece about the Tetlin Mining District, and you can see where Fort Knox is, or excuse me, where Mancho is, and see all the other opportunities, the other 13 opportunities in that district. In your book, there's some yellow pages, and there's these 2. And I would really ask for you just to spend a couple of minutes and go down through. These are quotes taken again from the press over time. And it talks about what they talk about they being Kinross, they being the mining industry, they being an author who is prolific in talking about what's happening in mining in Alaska. This is where it comes out that the Kinross, the new strategy, is the 300-mile radius. And you'll see this here right from the top dog down. I mean, it's just, this is their new business strategy. But read through this, it's really fascinating. And some people, well, it's a gotcha. Well, no, it's not a gotcha at all. It's a piece of the puzzle for us to do exactly what we're doing. Let's try to together work this out. We're not out here to kill mining. We're out here just to make sure people don't get killed on a highway. That's the difference. And so please spend a little bit of time on that, if you would, please. I think you'll find it fascinating. Let's talk a little bit about the ore haul equipment, which we got here. I'm not going to read all this to you because it really is good. This is put together. These 5 pages are put together by a fellow out of Delta who's got 50 years of driving doubles in Alaska. And so Bill sat down. His name's Bill Ward. Bill sat down, and when they finally, now mind you, we didn't get this until November 23rd of last year. We begged, we pleaded, we did just about anything that we could do legally to ask them to let us know what their truck looked like. Finally, it took a FOIA from a lady on our team that is not a practicing attorney, but she knows how things work, and went and got it out. And DOT had it in their pocket for 4 months, and we finally shook it loose. So what you see here, that's 95 feet from there to there, so that they can go from mine to mouth, mine to mill. What you see is 16 axles. What's important here, these are tri-drives. It doesn't mean anything to me, but it does now. Tri-drives. This is a short wheelbase tractor. Should be 300 inches. It's 220 or something. All because they have to get 50 tons. They get 50 tons in these 2 trailers, and get it in 95 feet in order to conform to the Department of Weights and Measures law. 95 feet. You can't take more than 95 feet beyond the Mitchell Expressway interchange. So no, I didn't say that right. Yes, you can with certain stipulations. So, okay, well, they have to cram all of this 50 tons into this much space, and they've got to do it. And so they do it by using 16 axles, smaller tires, smaller axle loading. anyhow, this does a much better job than I do. But read this, it's fascinating. And those, I mean, I know you all are familiar with Tenderfoot Hill. I mean, yeah, it ought to just scare the bejesus out of you.
Thinking about.
Anyway, spend a little time on that. So I put one in here, say, let's ride the route. So just, I want to hit 4 sections of the route and this pull out. And again, there's more here than I'm going to talk about, but I just want to hit just the high points of the 4 sections. The first section is from the mine to Delta Junction, Tok to Delta. It's 50 miles of straight stretch and 70 miles of hills and curves. It's got 3 World War bridges, and you've all been over them. They're legacy bridges. They were built in 1944 when the Alcan was being built, and they were remodeled in 1958, and that's it. One of them has been set aside as dangerous, but the point is they are now talking about bringing across from the mine up across those bridges. They're going to increase the heavy haul with these 170,000 pound trucks. They're going to increase the heavy haul by 508%. So they're doing emergency seismic work right now. They got problems with the bridges, and the DOT says, well, we're just going to replace them, but they never tell us where they're going to get the 500 or the 700 million. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Is that the Gertzel, the Johnson River, and the one that begins with an R? I've been on all those bridges.
Robertson.
Huh?
Robertson
River
Yeah.
Bridges, right?
Yeah. Between 700 and 1,700 feet long.
Yeah.
So they've been there since I had hair. So it's longer. Well, let's see, 1944. I was born. So that's very much a problem. So let's not dwell on that. That is creating great angst from what we can tell. Delta to Eielson. You probably always wanted to know how many driveways and intersection points there are between Delta and Eielson. There's 485, and I know because me and my assistant counted them coming back from Valdez last year, and 485 driveways or provisions for stubbed out driveways. So, and just between Springer Road and Boondocks out here there's a 49. Think school bus. Yeah, think snow tornadoes. Think people pulling out onto the road. Now Mitchell overpass to Farmers Loop. There's nine stoplights in 7.6 miles. And then over here, there's a 32-mile incursion into Sirius SIP. You guys are all familiar with this. There's the route. Here's the Nellie Miller's bridge here, and 32 miles here. So that's obvious. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I don't need to talk to you about that. Goodness, you know all about it. And then Chino Hot Springs Road from Farmers Loop to Cleary Summit. They won't say, but we have people whispering in our ears that the Chino Hot Springs Road Bridge will not handle 170,000 pound trucks every day. Will it handle one a day, 2 a day? Yeah, it's not going to handle 96 of them. So you'll notice we got there, you'll see on each side parallel to the overpass, you'll see some railroad gates like this. And so we're afraid the plan is to drop the gates every 15 minutes so that Chino Hot Springs Road stops, traffic on Chino Hot Springs Road stops, and the ore hauler chugs through on up Hagelbarger Hill. So we don't know that because we don't know, but we're going to find out with the corridor study. Let's see, I'm running out of time. I don't want to spend, but if you'll spend some time on that. We called out 4 main concerns that I'd like to share with you, and then I can wrap this up. The developer says, well, these are legal, which we challenge, but we say then, well, are they safe? Are they safe? And they say, well, they are. Well, I only have to take us back to 2018 when they were rebuilding the Sterling Highway down in Cooper Landing. and there was an ore hauler, and a rock fell off of the ore hauler, allegedly bounced, went through a windshield of a Volkswagen Jetty and took the life of an 8-year-old. The initials NS. That's in court. At least it was when I typed this up. And that's one ore haul on the Sterling Highway rebuild. We're talking here about 70,080 ore hauls to give you a range of magnitude of what we're talking. Special concern number 2, industrial haul road designation. They claim their loads are safe. That'll be determined somewhere along the line here in the next few months, maybe. But are they legal? They're not legal. The law requires that LCV, length controlled vehicles, have to travel on designated industrial roads, and you get that designation by applying by the regulations. You walk down and you have to check that. The developer has done none of that, and DOT has not asked them to do any of it. So they're illegal because Pega Road and the Johansson Expressway are not legal for LCVs. So they need to either stay off the road with 95-foot, 180,000-pound trucks, or they need to change the law, change the regulations. So that's very much a hot potato right now. And we don't know quite where that's headed. But again, we do have somebody on our team that knows this very well and can call out all the citations and all to give you great comfort that we know what they're talking about. So are they safe? Yeah, maybe. Are they legal? Not today, they're not. 3, infrastructure. I'm not going to spend much time with this. I already talked about the passing lanes, but I want to make one comment. But if you would please just go down through this. It talks about degradation of the highways and the increase in the degradation due to the haul road, due to the haulers. That's in here. And I want to go back to the passing lanes. The passing lanes, the ones they're talking about right now, close for public comment on Thursday. Those passing lanes are based on data that was taken by DOT in 2016, long before there was any thought about this. They were part of the Sarah Palin RV initiative, and it continued on to get Parks Highway straightened out, and which they've done pretty much done now. They're now moving over to the rich. So the data they're building it on is 2016 data for 40-foot RVs. That's the design data. I asked Mr. Heim, I said, aren't you going to redo the data because you're now talking about 180,000-pound, 95-foot ore haulers? And he says, no, I don't think there's a need to do that. So think about that for a moment. They're going to divide right now. They're going to design and build haul roads, that passing lanes that are designed. Design criteria is based on 40-foot RVs. Hopefully we can get that ship changed. And my last is air quality, and you'll hear more about this from Patrice and Mrs. Kornberg. So I won't say much about that other than you see this, which we're very familiar with, and I think that's probably all I have to call out there, with the thought that congestion equals pollution. And I mean, God knows you folks are, the eye of the needle right here. So I'm not telling you anything there. So with that finishes up. And ASA made a promise to people that we talked to. This is what we pledged to do. We're lovingly called ourselves a ragtag team of overachievers, but they have from across the political spectrum, we have gathered together to try to explain to good folks like you that this will change interior Alaska forever if we allow this first truck to be on the road. This is a change in quality of life. People will leave here because it will be another Butte, Montana. It'll be semis all over the place hauling ore. So with that, I'm just going to shut up and thank you again for allowing me to ramble on. And I hope that you are intrigued. I hope you're challenged. I hope you're scared. I hope you're scared to death about this silly idea. And we need good people to stand up to tell our governor, tell our mayor that not no, but hell no. Let's figure out a better way to do it. There has to be, and we can do it. So with that, I'll be quiet and thank you again.
Well, Gary, let us ask you some questions. First, I'll
Sure.
start out. Worthy citizen, thank you for giving us a full presentation here. And I think that one of the things I would like to know about is where is our interior delegation, the best that you can tell on this issue for our interior senators and representatives? Are they for or against it? Best you can tell. You don't have to name names.
Yeah,
just-
well, no, I would name names.
Yeah.
I think that they're perplexed.
Yeah.
I think that they haven't been in a place where they need to make a choice.
Yeah.
I think, let's just be frank. Ken Ross spends a lot of time with their checkbook. And I would respectfully suggest they should spend more time with their fact book. So, we haven't had them in a situation where they need to really come out and talk about where we did have a vote at the city council,
Mhm.
and that resulted in this resolution. That thank you, Mayor and Councilman Jacobson, for working through it. It was crafted at the city council that and yours does it. We want to make sure it's very clear that we're not against mining. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not against mining. What we're talking about is the ore transport. And that came out of that city council meeting. And we were very grateful for that. And you're a springboard. You're using that as a springboard for your consideration. I would say I talked to a new member on Saturday, and just to ask if there was any buzz or anything, and he said, hell no, I'm drinking from a fire hose. There's no talk about that. So, and only where it'll surface first, Mayor, is when the budget subcommittees, budget subcommittees fire up and see what kind of monies are going to be required for year one, if any. And you got a Senate president here, so he'll be able to check me on this. So, but
Just that we have a delegation leaving on the 20th of February. And we stay there and not come back till the 24th. So we're there for the whole week. So, and I always get there before AML even starts, just so that we can do what we have to do. And so off the record later, if you see anybody you think we should talk to while we're there, we'll be glad to.
well, there's a bunch of new people.
Yeah, I know there
So
are.
you got to cut them some slack.
Yeah.
And this isn't really on the radar screen. I mean, I know it in their hearts, the right thing to do. But right now they've got a lot of other in the heart thing going on.
And the other thing is, correct me, but was it July or August in the FAST policy board? It was July or August, it wasn't June, that we did the bifurcated route idea so that those of us who live in the urban area would have our say so, and then those who are in the rural area, because the rural area, just as important in my mind, is they have different challenges out in the rural part of this 248 miles.
Mhm.
Did anything ever come from that?
No,
No.
it didn't. And I was there for that, and it just fell through the cracks. I don't know whatever.
The
That
July
ever got
August
legs or
initiative.
not.
Yeah, I was there. so
Yeah.
Disappointed. Questions now while we have Mr. Wilkins here. Yes. Yes, David. Mr.
Yeah,
Skip.
no, this was really informed when I was reading it the other night, but there's a couple things that weren't on it that, like weight restrictions. Certain times of the year, the state lowers weight restrictions because a lot of the roads aren't in the best shape. And with these heavy trucks going on, it's gonna completely tear up these roads.
Yep. And everybody that lives here, I mean, the 80%, 50% component in that, it tears people apart for 6 weeks at a time, right?
Yeah,
If you're in that business.
Yep.
Ken Ross has been asked about that from day one. And their answer today, if I might, I think, is that, well, they're going to take care of that because they're using 9,000 pound axles, and so they'll meet the weight requirements. But that doesn't answer the question. Well, then how are you still going to get 50 tons on that and still move it across with the required I don't know what the word is, but the pressure on the highway. So that's an answer. serve for Kinross to answer.
Yeah.
A question for Kinross to answer.
Yeah.
It's on everybody's mind. I mean, it's like the school buses. It's so plain, you just don't know quite what to do.
Yeah, and another area you mentioned from Delta to Isleton, as far as driveways, there's a lot of driveways from Fox Scales up to Pedro Monument. And there's a lot of bus stops on there too. And those roads are really narrow.
Yeah, about as wide as this table.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I forget how many are there, Sue will remember, but yeah, you're right.
Oh, there's quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of driveways there.
And so you're familiar with Skokie Curve?
Yes.
Yeah, and Kinross put out 3 different RFPs for their trucking contractor. We heard about it for a year and a half. They came back. The first one, they went out to Alaska, five companies in Alaska. You'd recognize most of them. And they all came back as non-responsive. So they then broadened it and they brought us together on November 11th, the year before last, and said that we're non-responsive. We're now going to go out and we're going to send the RFPs to statewide trucking companies. And someone asked, do you mean Canada? And they say, yeah, Canada too. So they went to Canada and the United States. Off it went, the RFPs refined. Never heard a word. That would have been November of 21. Never heard a word until that following spring. And someone we all know said, well, they didn't come back responsive either. So they are, their word, optimizing their RFP, and they're going worldwide. So they went out and broadcast this worldwide, and still didn't come back with a company that would take that truck and haul 50 tons in the Arctic. So I think that's pretty true, because but they would answer that. They should answer it. They needed it. But the foot stomp is that this thing is so scary. One of the first respondents said to the first RFP, I wouldn't touch that project with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, my thing is I'm scared. You can't get drivers anywhere anyway, as it is.
Yeah.
You're going to get drivers from Florida driving these Arctic conditions with my family on the roads.
And isn't there a CDL endorsement that
Or doubles and triples.
there's something going on right now with that? We found out about a couple of weeks ago. There was a request to lessen the requirements to allow drivers to come here. And
it's a
we're
real
sort of
bad
chasing that
idea.
right now because it's real scary, and
Yeah.
a couple of truck people are looking at that. Anyway.
No, but this is good information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a website. Please go to it. We have a Facebook page. Oh, I'm sorry.
So
I had a
one of the
question from
trucks
Mr.
got,
Anton. Go ahead.
so one of the trucks got like stuck somewhere in the middle of the road. Like, how are they gonna tow it out with such amount of weight on it? You know what I mean? Like, if it's in the way, like, how do they have equipment to get that out?
Oh, if Chief Darrell Vanderweg from Salsha Fire and Rescue were sitting here, he'd say, I don't know how we're gonna get a 80-ton truck off of the top of a sedan or a school bus. We don't have the record to do it. And he's right up front about that. And no, they don't. Oh, pardon me.
Piece of information from
Sure.
the same guy on that call. He said, if one of those trucks jackknives and tips over, we do not have the physical capacity in our equipment to move it off the road. And he said, we have been talking to Kinross and asking Kinross to pay for us to get that equipment. And he said, so far, hasn't happened.
So it's very much in those people who live in that world, it's scary as heck.
Yeah, there's not many heavy wreckers in Fairbanks.
No.
And that's a very heavy wrecker. Yeah.
Gary, my question to you, with this happening, how are we approaching to be able to tell Kinross to give us the answers that we need to satisfy what we're needing for them to move on.
I'm not sure what else we could have done or could do to pry information out of Kinross. They have effective March, the fellow that was here, and this is all just one guy blabbering on. He was relieved and he went back to Toronto and they brought in a new person. And since that time, they have just locked down. They don't come to meetings. When they are required to be to a meeting, they send a backbencher with no authority whatsoever. It's let me write that down. I'll get back to you. So I don't have, Chandra, any expectation that they're going to voluntarily provide us with much at all. I think that I fear, other of us fear, that this thing is going straight ahead and it'll get to the end. And the people think like we do are sitting on a siding as the Kinross train goes by and they're waving at us with not more than one finger. So that scares us. We're just, well, I'll just say it. We've gotten very little support from our governor. In fact, well, I'll leave it at that. We've gotten very little support from Mayor Ward. There are many times he could have stood up and at least with a wink and a nod gave some sort of support at the assembly level, or called Kinross in to say, I represent 90,000 people. What are you doing for them? And unless I wasn't invited to any of those meetings, all of us on OSSA feel the same way, that we've been left at the station. So many people say, the first thing people say is, oh, God, I think they can't do that. And I say, oh yeah, they can. It's happening right now. So the next thing people say, invariably, why don't they just build a plant at the mine? All right, you go through that whole thing. Yeah, and we don't need to get into that. And then the next thing they say is, what can I do to help? And they really mean that. And we're pedaling as fast as we can. And the next thing they say, do you need money? And it's just a cascade like that. I don't know how many people have been like that. So lots of good-hearted people wanted to do the right thing. But boy, it's tough when you don't have any leadership. Really tough.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jacobson, go.
Gary, thank you for putting together this updated booklet for us and working with me and the mayor on this resolution. But I just want to make sure we are going to be amending the first two paragraphs. But I've heard two different numbers used. I want to make sure that we're going to use the right one. Is it 240 miles or 248 miles?
It's 248 if you count the miles from the Alcan to the mine itself, to the gate to the mine. So
which number would you prefer to us to include?
I like 240 because it makes the math a lot easier.
Okay.
Really. So
I know that from a public works perspective, the amount of money that it costs to maintain and repair roads in our city, let alone along the Richardson Highway with the scant funds that the northern region has been getting and the year after year cut back in funding and the creative out of the box thinking of how are we going to get our job done today, to where a lot of their snow removal equipment is basically a pickup now with a plow in front. And that's how they service the northern region, because they don't have the funding, nor do they have the drivers, the operators to operate the equipment. For once, Public Works is ahead of the game because we actually pay more for our operators than DOT does. So we're not losing drivers to them, they're losing drivers to us. But even at that, this number of operators is going to be a death to the rest of us trying to get operators now.
Yep.
It's talking about the monies that don't come for the roads for more than 4 years. As you go out 12 mile to get onto the Richardson, there was this big chunk I don't know if you remember it, where Big State Logistics, all those trucks took a big chunk out of the road as you're crossing over and you get your, like my little truck gets, it's not little, it's a pretty good sized truck. And it gets its rear left wheel caught where that chunk is missing, where that road's not there. That's where the middle island is. They finally, after 4.5 years, fixed it. I kept belly aching about it. What's it going to take? And I sent them pictures. What's it going to take? And I don't think they ever had the money to do it, to be honest with you. And so I can imagine these big trucks tearing up the roads just for that one little piece there. People coming out of the refinery day in, day out. That's a lot of stuff.
You
too.
know about the STIP, and Jeff, you
Yep.
know about the STIP. I
Yep.
don't know if the rest of you have been involved with the STIP, but that is a dog eat dog. And when they get in that back room to divvy up that money for the next fiscal year, there's a central region, south central region, northern region.
Northern region.
And I can tell you just because you can see 2/3 of the population from the top of the Captain Cook, they get first shot. And so they're not going to give us a nickel because we happen to have an ore haul here to fix an expensive bridge. And it's going to come out of our piece that could have gone to fix something. Instead, it's going to fix a bridge. But that's a whole nother subject. And
Any other questions?
I was just kind of curious.
Yeah.
When you have had discussions with Ken Ross or attempted to, do you offer suggestions or do they have suggestions, other ones that they've considered? Have they voiced that at all? Or is this like the resolution suggests that this is the only thing they've ever thought of?
it's pretty meager. My opinion, they aren't going to offer any sort of fix as long as the opportunity that they will get a free haul road forever funded by you. That's what they're going to get here. This is $1 billion deal for them. So they're going to sit on their hands until it reaches the point where somebody does something to them. Whatever it is, the pressure is so great, logic, money, whatever it is, to where they say, well, wait a minute, maybe we do need to do it a different way. But they're not coming up with those solutions because truly, I mean, they get $1 billion. They get a haul road funded at your peril, my family's peril, and our nickel. Oh no.
Where's the
Don't get me
congressional
going. Wait a minute,
delegation? Where's the congressional delegation, as you know it? Where are they at on this?
Somewhat helpful.
Somewhat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that shoe is yet to drop.
Okay.
So when this thing first rolled out in public, finally, when they finally had to have some open houses, that Saul should Delta, and they had one on January 18th of last year here. And the question was asked, are you willing to help with a sinking fund or some way to use some of the profit to put it in to a fund to help fund the roads and repair damage to the roads? And the answer on 3 different occasions has come back and said, no, we suggest you just increase your gas tax, your 8-cent gas tax, and use those monies. If I'm lying, I'm dying. People were there. And so the story was, well, we'll just increase that to 16 cents. And everybody in the state will suffer that, whether they're affected by this or not.
Senator Bishop wanted to create 16 cents. I remember that. Well,
yeah.
But then those of us say, oh, we don't want to pay that much more because the price of gas is going up. So, yeah.
So that's their suggestion. And that's been widely published. That's no secret. That's no backroom talk. That was flat out. I can tell you the people that said it. So, and you wouldn't be offering any suggestions either if you were looking for that haul road, you know?
Well, to me, it seems like they're passing the puck. Because if you think about it, if you have a subcontractor doing a job, you don't have to worry about the liability of what's going on for those trucking, right? You're just worried about what's going on at the mine, what's going on at the refinery, and the processing, and then you have subcontractors, you're not worried. So I'm wondering if we're asking some of the wrong companies these questions of what are they doing to ensure the safety? What are they doing to ensure, what are they doing for the roads? But no, it's kind of interesting. Thank you for coming and sharing this info with us.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure. We got a great little team that's motivated, and I'm privileged to speak on their behalf because I think they would agree with most of what I said. So anyway, I've taken enough of your time and look forward to a couple of more thoughts when they can talk, when you actually have the discussion.
Thank you, Gary. Well, it's coming up soon here. Thank you very
I'll
much.
get out of here. Thank you again.
Okay, item B, this is just like a little workshop, if you want. It's a work in progress. So I'm trying to say 2023 committee signups. This doesn't have to be fully determined tonight, but if it can be, it would be nice. And so those are on pages 10 to 14. And I think the clerk did a really good job to kind of give you an idea of what those committees entail. Some of those are ad hoc committees, and some of them are throughout the year. So I think you can see, like if you see, for example, Howard Rixey in the middle of the festival, it could be anybody on North Pole Community Chamber of Commerce. He would just be somebody that would be a holding place for us to contact North Pole Community Chamber of Commerce. You could see, say, Benjamin, or that's Benny Williams, to help us with the senior center. And that would be a good thing. So we know those people, or through them somehow, would help us with the festival committee. Bed tax committee, is probably one person on that would be an alternate. And we kind of show who's not on the council too, as the year passes, because Mrs. Welch will be term limited out by then. Ethics committee, we have to find, we can't have ourselves on it. And Doug Isaacson will be moving from Shirley turnaround to somewhere on Brookside Park later this summer. We just don't know where that's going to be. I need about 2 more people there, but I have somebody else in mind, but until I can confirm. That Memorial Park, that's something that I and the police chief and the fire chief make sure that's done, but it doesn't preclude all of us or any of us being there to put it on. Code violations, well, we have one on one of our roads here, one of our major roads in town. So I think we have enough people to see to it that our code is properly enforced. And so we have enough people on that right now, except Dejan will leave in 23. So as we move along, we'll find out. Economic development. Once again, I have Howard Rixey on there simply because he's on Community Chamber of Commerce. He's trying to get his hands on the throttle of the existing businesses and new businesses. So that gives somebody from North Pole Community Chamber of Commerce an opportunity to be with that. The borough rep, Mrs. Welch is leaving us, so she's not going to be doing any more of those until I think we had a listing of the dates. Are they on there somewhere? Yeah, I don't think she'll do any more after September 28th. So I think she's got 8 of those on there out of like 23 or 4. She's got 8 of those set on there. If you find that those don't work with you, maybe you could swap with somebody. The clerk will find a way to send you a reminder before you go. There could even be a cancellation. I think, help me somebody, Madam Clerk, or even Mrs. Welch, isn't there a time in May where they're so busy doing finance that they don't, I think you might see that in there in May, where they don't have borough meetings. Am I correct about that?
There's a time when they are doing their
Simply,
budgets and stuff like that. And I'm not sure exactly what dates
that's in
they are.
May, yeah, that's why you see a big
But
break.
there shouldn't be a need for a borough rep there because they're not going to do, they're not going to do presentations for it.
So
So
there could be something in there that's not properly stated. I don't know. And what's next on that list? Total compensation, that's not compensation, it's compensation. And compensation was part of what we were doing with Dave Evertson out of Municipal Solutions. That's an ad hoc thing. What it includes too is every director in the city. So I don't know if you think there should be another person from the council. Jeff, what do you think? You have every director is going to be on there. Okay, and it's one of those things that we probably should be able to do it. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, seeing how we've gone through this. We should be able to do it in about 4 meetings, and each of those meetings no more than an hour and a half. And it's to put together prior to this budget session what we promised ourselves we would do and say, are we competitive with the local area for our pay and benefits? That's all we're really doing, so that when the budget gets put out by those directors, they'll know where to go. So when that's passed, if it is passed in third reading in December, it goes effective in 24, then that's what we kind of live with for the next 3 years. That we say, we've made an honest effort to update our pay, our what we call total compensation. That includes everything from merit pay, benefits, holidays, you understand, all of that, awards, things like that will be in there. Housing development is ad hoc because 2 things that go with that, and that is we need to determine if whatever we do for military facility zone, anything that has to do with somebody coming in here wanting to build, and any kind of fee relief or tax relief, instead of having it shoe put on our foot and it doesn't fit, we could say, well, we can't do that. And anybody wants to be on that committee, let us know, but we may very well have some builders on that committee too. What's next on that list, Madam Clerk? I think that might be it. Yeah, that's it. So.
Mayor, are you accepting recommendations
Yeah,
for these committees?
sure.
Can I recommend Mrs. Clack for the Total Compensation Committee?
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. And you can't say no.
Oh, you're telling her she can't say no. Okay.
But with that, I was interested in Housing Development Committee
Mhm.
and Economics,
Yeah, well, I don't know if we have economics, do we?
3 of those.
Economic development. Okay.
And I just attended the Explore Fairbanks.
Yep.
Would you use your microphone?
Oh, excuse me.
That way it goes on the record.
With that, and finding out that there was a gentleman that I met there during that conference or their training that I would be able to make contact with out of Anchorage. He spoke. So I told him I would like to be in contact with him, with the people that are on this list,
Okay.
so we could figure out what we can do to help bring in
I
more
appreciate
development
you
for our
willing to do
community.
that. Uh-huh. So, this isn't an action item. This is just us trying to put it together so that by March 6th, we have some idea where we want to go. So if you want to be on one of those committees, please let the clerk know before March 6th. Sir, Mr.
In
Jacobs.
talking to Mr. Skips, he's expressed an interest on being back on the Code Violations Committee.
Yeah, he was on it years ago. We never, so right there, Mr. Skips on code violation, you just passed it there. It's one more up there.
Like someone else to share that pain with us.
Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna have that issue this June. We don't need to mention who that's with, but we'll take care of that this June. I hope the guy's gonna deal with us fair and square. I think we gave him to June 15. So, but, the clerk can put this on the website, so if you get an idea you wanna do something or recommend somebody, don't hold back. Appreciate you, Ms. Clack, for helping us out here.
Could the clerk send out to us an updated
Yeah.
committee roster so we know where
Yeah.
we're at with all the changes?
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mayor, is there an action item on this tonight or just
No,
are we
it's not.
gonna
It's just,
continue working?
it's just,
Okay.
that's why it's ongoing project. It's
Okay.
just a report. It's not, we go to item 11. There is no unfinished business. So under new business, what we have first up is item B, and that's Danny coming forward again. Aren't you lucky, Danny, you get to stay tonight? Resolution 2302, a resolution of the City Council of North Pole, Alaska in support of grant applications. Madam Clerk, please put up pages 24 and 25. Anyone want to discuss pages 24 and 25? Thank you,
Sure, thank-
sir.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. We're seeking support for a grant application that the city of North Pole is doing as part of the CMAQ, or the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality funding that's available. The FAST and the Fairbanks North Star Borough have access to $2.1 million of funds, and they're asking for, by February 17th, grant applications. We have done some background research on these 5 items. Again, electric vehicle charging station at City Hall, winter block heater outlets, LED light conversions for the candy cane light poles, and dump truck sanding spreader replacement tires, and a bus shuttle additions along the Max Green Line route. Those 5 items are listed here in the ordinance. The approval and the support by the council does not commit the city to these items. If we're given the grant money, that will be another decision for the city later on. But given the fact that the applications are due on February 17th, and all of these would benefit the city of North Pole and its citizens, we request that a support from the city council. And again, this gets us, when we're scoring the packets for the grant applications, support from the city council is very important for that process. So I'll answer any questions right now, but this is the request to the city council.
Mrs. Welch?
Just curious about the bus shelters. Would that not be something that should be connected with what the borough does? I mean, that should be there. It's their quote unquote, their bus routes.
It is their bus routes. I have talked to the MAX, the municipal area transit folks. They have said that they are not pursuing anything for new bus shelters for the city of North Pole. Again, in discussing this with some of the council members, actually not some of the council members, some of the citizens, about the need for these bus shelters. There are areas identified in North Pole where they've got a bus shelter on one side of the street and not one on the other side of the street. Support to this, again, provides the potential for bus shelters on both sides. And again, Max is not pursuing this. They are pursuing snow removal equipment in and around the bus shelters, but they're not looking at any upgrades for the city of North Pole inside the city limits.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor?
Say again?
Follow up.
Yeah, please.
So are we gonna get to design those so that they fit in with our theme?
I think there may be some latitude on that, but that would certainly be a discussion between us and the borough as far as how they would. They certainly will have to conform to ADA standards. They'll have to conform to most likely DOT some of the other state standards that are out there for bus shelters. Again, this is something that's still under development, but we are just seeking that initial yes, that the council does agree that this is a good idea, and then we'll take the next step after this.
Maybe it can have the seal of the city on there too. I just noticed a lot of people standing out in the frigid cold and no way to be sheltered, just standing out there. It doesn't make sense to me after all these years. And I would think that maybe Pro Tem Jacobson, remember when the airport was getting rebuilt by Governor Frank Murkowski, that there was a possibility of getting those things brought out here. And I think I only got one of them from the old airport cover. So I think we need to go back in that direction. So,
We actually got all of them,
yeah,
and they languished here, and subsequent mayors basically discarded them.
that's right. They were done away with. Anyone else for Danny? Because if not, then I'm going to ask Madam Clerk, is anyone here in the audience or anyone online for this item for citizens' comments on this ordinance, on this resolution, I mean? Okay, seeing none. Then I need someone to
Move to introduce and adopt resolution 2302, a resolution of the City Council of the North Pole, Alaska, in support of grant applications.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Jacobson and seconded by Welch. Any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, no questions. Madam Clerk, call the question, please.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Keller, Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone wish to change their vote? I'm looking and I see none. Thank you very much. Resolution 2302 was unanimous. We now go to item C, Resolution 2303, a resolution from the North Pole City Council expressing its opposition to the soul ore trucking proposal for the Manco Mine project. You'll find that, please put it up on pages 26 and 27. And if you would like, Pro Tem Jacobson, if you want to discuss the changes that you would like to make to this, if she can make them on the fly, that'd be nice.
Are we going to have public
Oh,
presentations
they
first?
will, but first we'll let you do, because
Okay,
you're the,
To clarify in the first paragraph, we wanted to make sure that that the city is supporting the development of the ore, but not the transportation plan. So I'm proposing that in the first paragraph or after the wording, the long tradition of gold mining in interior Alaska, that the sentence ends there and the remaining words are deleted. And then in the second paragraph that we insert the miles after 90-foot long and weighing up to 80 tons would make the 240-mile trip from Tetland to Clary Summit. And I think that makes it very clear that we're separating, that we're supporting the mine development
Mhm.
and it's not the transportation plan. It kind of separates that by making that those changes.
Excuse
And I
me.
appreciate the input that I've received in
Mrs. Clack has a question.
Could we add to that we would need to see or would like to have more planning from them in this resolution? In the aspect of helping
Should we do that further? down
presentation
along
and the
in
mirrors and
discussion?
stuff? Can we
Should we
add that in our
Further down
documentation?
after the testimony?
I think if we hear the public testimony, we would
Yeah.
perhaps get the what information be requesting specifically.
Okay,
He's the maker of the motion, so I'm letting him go through his
Okay.
changes. And
Yeah.
after the changes, we'll get comments from the citizens and then we'll make a motion to now open it up to us afterwards. Thank
Okay.
you.
Those are the only changes that I have
Yeah.
proposed for tonight.
Okay, those are only changes that he has. Thank you. So, Mrs. Welch, you have something?
They should be brought up as amendments, right?
Yeah, they will be brought
Okay,
up.
so
as a
this
mem-
is just,
Yeah, we're just clearing it because he's the maker of the motion. So with that said, Madam Clerk, who do we have in the audience that would like, or online, that would like to give, we have someone online, we'll go to them first if you'd like.
We do. We have Patrice Lee with us.
Hello, Miss Patrice. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Welch and council members. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. It's good to be back before you again. 3 minutes is not enough time to go into detail, so I would make myself available for future discussions should this group feel that it would be helpful. And please, if I run out of time, consider asking me what the state can do if to help us stay warm and clean up our air.
Miss Lee, we have a 5-minute limit, not 3 here. We're very
Oh,
generous.
No wonder I love coming here so much. Thank you. Our major concerns, of course, are the overall safety and attention to details, including existing Alaska statutes and laws regarding the ore haul trucking plan, which include determining which roads will be designated as industrial. But tonight, more specifically, I'd like to address concerns related to air quality. And first and foremost, I'd like to say that Citizens for Clean Air is a local group that advocates for clean air and warm homes. And we stand in solidarity with advocates for safe Alaska highways in their quest to change this ore haul trucking program. We're concerned about the air quality study put out by Kinross. It uses outdated information with wrong assumptions and is an apple to zebras comparison. More importantly, the Fairbanks North Star Borough contains the serious air quality non-attainment area that must come into compliance with the Clean Air Act or suffer consequences that will be forthcoming. we stand in, or our group and I stand in favor of the resolution this evening that you might make to express the concerns of the North Pole City Council about this trucking plan. The Fairbanks non-attainment area is a terrible situation of our own making. We're in trouble for many reasons. For more than 14 years, the EPA has tried to work with local leaders, community groups, and then the State Department of Environmental Conservation, and all of us to help us keep warm without burning on bad air quality days. And that hasn't been very successful so far. We are still woefully out of compliance with the Clean Air Act, and our citizens are paying the price with their health. $40 million has been spent on burning better. Not one penny has been spent to help those whose health and life have been affected. We are so far behind compliance with the Clean Air Act that it came into being to protect our health and safety. Any additional pollution from PM 2.5, which is all pollution of any type that is smaller than 2.55 microns, will keep us from making the goals needed and further jeopardize our health and safety. It will most certainly make sanctions of our federal highway dollars and a federal implementation plan much more likely. The proposal to truck gold ore from Manh Choh to Fort Knox through the non-attainment zone with huge trucks, the size of which take one's breath away, will certainly delay and perhaps derail our efforts to meet air quality standards. Should a foreign mine's profits endanger a community's health, finances, and way of life? Science has informed the EPA for some time now that the levels of PM 2.5 that exceed health and safety should be much lower. The EPA has proposed lowering the level of PM 2.5 from all sources, including metallic dust and rubber tire particles from trucks. The Manh Choh trucking plan cannot help but add significantly to our levels of pollution. Also, if local citizens who are just trying to stay warm are not allowed to burn on the very frequent air quality alert days without risk of fine, then why would behemoth trucks working for reportedly huge foreign company profits be allowed to traverse a route through that same non-attainment area with impunity? Fort Knox gets its electricity to process ore from GVEA. If the process moves to 24 hours a day to accommodate the dramatically increased amount of processing that needs to happen, the extra electricity may very likely come from burning naphtha or diesel in North Pole. That would further deteriorate the air quality, making compliance more difficult and further risk non-attainment. We are at the crossroad, literally. Either we stand up for protecting our air quality, warm homes, our way of life, and our economic viability, or we concede it to a foreign corporation for a marginal benefit to the state. Your discussion and any subsequent vote are vital for our community, and I hope you will stand with us for the viability, safety, and health of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Any questions for Ms. Patrice Lee? Any concerns? Thank you for testifying. Appreciate it. Anyone in the audience now that would like to testify for or against, however you'd like to testify? If so, you may take a chair, state your name for the record, where you live, and go ahead, Mike. We know you are. We think we do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, I'm here not with my IGU hat on, but as a private citizen. First of all, I would like to speak in support of Resolution 2303. It's been my experience, and I'd like also to say that I think almost everybody in this room supports industry in the state of Alaska and the mining industry, which has been a bedrock in the state of Alaska. In fact, many would argue that Fairbanks would not be here if it was not for the mining industry. But having said that, in my experience of 19 years in government, 18 years at the legislative level, and a year as Commissioner of Administration under Governor Murkowski, I have found that sometimes industry, even though they have been our partners through the years, will sometimes come up with solutions to their problems, which is not in the best interest of the public. And this is one of those times where, unfortunately, they have not come up with a solution that is in the best interest of the public. I think that, and many of the interests have already been expressed here by Gary Wilkins, much better than I could express them. And there's a number of people here to testify. So, in the interest of time, but I think that this resolution is very important for another reason. Again, I'm leaning back on my 19 years of state government experience. And when I was in the legislature or as commissioner, if our local governments, and we have three, actually more of them, we're talking Delta and other areas that will be also affected by this. If they start passing resolutions in opposition of something that happened, it was my experience that we in the legislature, wait a minute, what's going on here? We took interest in that. We viewed it very, with a critical eye. And we'd go to industry, say, our local governments are passing, because they're our constituents too. And, in the legislature, we represent the same people that you represent. And if you're saying no to something, there must be a reason why. So I think it's very important that you do this, because I think there are solutions to the problem. And I think that's listed on the second page of this resolution. Some of the solutions, are they more expensive? Yes. But you know what? They're in the best interest of the public. And in the long run, they're the best interest in the state of Alaska. And yes, it may cost a little bit more money. And yes, there may have to be more state-private partnership and figuring out some of these things. One of the things that's always intrigued me, and it was certainly a pet peeve of a former representative from North Pole, was Jeanette James with the railroad. And if we can partner with the local government, state government, and the federal government to Department of Defense also, who knows, maybe we can connect at some point. And most of that right away, from my understanding, to the Canadian border has been acquired by the state.
Yes, sir.
That's a solution, could be a win-win for everybody if we can connect up with the Canadian rail system for a lot of different industries in this state. Will it cost more money? Yes, but it is a positive solution to this problem. So with that, I support the council approving this resolution, because it will help our folks back in Juneau to stop for a minute and say, hey, why are our local governments opposing this? They're our constituents too. So let's find out a solution. Let's find a solution to this problem. So I support it. And again, any questions?
Yes, sir. Do you know by chance where former Lieutenant Governor B. Treadwell stands on this, especially in lieu of the railroad?
I do not
'Cause I will see
know
him soon.
where Meade stands on the issue. I have not talked to him about this particular issue. But I know Meade has been very, over the years, has always supported the best interest of the state of Alaska. And this particular program that Ken Ross wants to do is not, in my opinion, in the best interest of the state of Alaska, and especially the people of the state of Alaska.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Miller? Ms. Welch?
Yeah, just pulled up here on Mr. Google here. Are you aware that the Kinross Gold altogether has more than a 26.5% increase over the last year in profits? How can we put this best to use for?
Well, sometime in private industry, and as most of you know, I am in private industry, although tourism, and it's a local family industry here in North Pole. But sometimes industry has to do what's best for the folks, for the people that they are serving, and they're making money on this project. And if they weren't going to make money, they wouldn't be doing this. And sometimes local industry has to partner with local governments to come up with the best solution. Because if we have all those trucks out there, there's going to be a public outroar against Kinross. And that's the last thing you want as a business to be happening if the public becomes dead set against you. So it's in their best interest too to find a solution to this problem. And I speak as a businessman from that. In my business, the last thing I want to do is offend the public.
Anyone else on the council?
Thank you so very much for
Thank
your
you, sir.
time and effort into this.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Oh, anyone else in the audience to speak? If so, please come forward and state your name and where you live for the record, please.
My name is Mary Farrell and I live in Fairbanks. I'm also a member of the Advocates for Safe Alaska Highways, and I would like to thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. I come to voice my support of Resolution 2303. Kinross says that trucking ore from Manh Choh to Fort Knox results in a low-cost, high-margin project. But we say that the public health and safety should not be put at risk simply because it's the cheapest solution for a foreign mining operation to maximize their profits. Using 240 miles of public highways and city streets as mining haul roads is not done in any other state. Our roads and bridges were never designed nor built to be heavy-duty mining haul roads. In the last 90 days, at least 40 have had air quality alerts, and most of those were stage 2 for North Pole. We are in a serious non-attainment for PM 2.5 pollution under the Clean Air Act, and allowing large numbers of ore trucks to drive through 32 miles of the non-attainment zone 24 hours a day, 365 days a year does nothing to help us out of this bad situation. It can only make it worse. We know that the Manh Choh business plan is the blueprint for several developing mines on the state's road system because Kinross has told us so. Trucks from multiple mines could potentially drive through North Pole on their way to Fort Knox. Tens of thousands of people who live and work in the Fairbanks and North Pole area will have the quality of their lives negatively impacted. We do not have to be the guinea pig for this experiment. We must push back against the developers of this unprecedented trucking plan. Resolution 2303 sends the right message to the state and to Kinross. Alternative solutions, such as processing near the mine, need to be seriously looked at that do not risk the public's health and safety. I ask that you give this resolution your full support, and thank you.
Ms. Farrell, please stay there. I'm going to ask you a question real quick, and anyone else in the council can. Ms. Farrell, have you heard, are you aware of what we may lose from the EPA and the state implementation plan if we don't stay within or come within from a 12 microliter to 9 microliters per MCF? That's a 25% reduction. Have you heard what we might lose in fast funds over the next 5 years?
I don't have specific amounts,
Okay.
but I have heard that federal funding could be cut, and also folks would be mandated to burn ultra low sulfur diesel in their home heating systems, which would be quite a bit more expensive for everybody.
Thank you. I'd asked you if you were aware, because I was told it was as much as $50 million, which means we can't plan for nothing for the next 5 years up
I
here.
didn't know the amount. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mary Farrell, please? Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that wants to give public testimony, please, yes, come forward and tell us your name and where you live for the record. Thank you.
My name is Lynn Hadukovich Kornberg, and this has been the most enjoyable governing body, and I haven't sat in front of any of them in my lifetime, so thank you. And it's a wonderful engagement. This is comments on an ore haul trucking noise dangers. The Kinross Peak Gold Manh Choh Fort Knox ore haul proposal endangers both thousands of local residents who live on or near and use the proposed route, and many travelers and tourists who use the proposed route. For example, the fact that there are over 100 school bus stops on the route that are active morning and afternoon during the entire school year has, to my knowledge, been completely ignored in the Kinross rush to turn public roads into haul roads. However, a serious but neglected issue for many local residents is the prospect of enormous trucks running both full and empty 24 hours a day, which includes the hours of normal, healthy sleep. Kinross has provided no valid scientific study on this issue. The necessary relationship between sound sleep and health is well established by many sciences, such as neurology, psychology, physiology, and psychiatry. The direct impact of noise on health is a more recently scientifically validated relationship. The World Health Organization recently concluded that road traffic noise increases the risk for ischemic heart disease and potentially other cardiometabolic diseases, including stroke, obesity, and diabetes, from adverse cardiovascular events of traffic noise with a focus on nighttime noise. And the new WHO Noise Guidelines Annual Review of Public Health, Volume 41, 309 to 328. In the same article, the National Institute on Deafness and Other Communication Disorders states, long or repeated exposure to sound at or above 85 decibels can cause hearing loss. Also, novel experimental studies found noise to be associated with oxidative stress-induced vascular and brain damage and vascular brain infiltration with inflammatory cells. Noise-induced pathophysiology was more pronounced in response to nighttime as compared with daytime noise. From the same article, the EPA calculated the safe noise level for the public to prevent hearing loss to be a 70 decibel time-weighted average for a 24-hour period. The following supports this level: continued exposure to noise above 70 dPa adjusted decibels over time will cause hearing loss, from International Noise Awareness Day. Studies have found that nighttime noise is indeed an important risk factor for some CVDs, cardiovascular diseases, and that intermittent noise with peaks clearly above the background level above the nighttime may be particularly harmful. Public health article cited above. In its trucking overview, Kinross states, noise level will not exceed 80 dBA, which is the EPA required standard, end quote. Since Kinross misstates the EPA standard and plans 24/7 trucking, how can this exposure not be a potential cause of adverse health conditions for many local residents? 3 mitigations are possible. 1, no ore haul. 2, only 20 trucks on the route at any one time with no permission to increase that number at any time in the future. And 3, no ore haul from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. on any day of the year. This is a legally enforced quiet time in other areas of the country whose noise ordinances I've researched. Numbers 2 and 3 can be used together. This is not a traditional mining model that my family and many in this room's families are here in this valley. This is a global industrialized model. This is a faceless and nameless global industrial mining industry.
I ask you a question, Ms. Cornwall. Are you familiar with the somewhere past Harding Lake, somewhere I think on the Richardson round marker 331 or so, where the people own the trailer company here up in the hill as you go southbound towards Delta, way up in the hill? Have you ever been up in there to listen to the trucks? Because I don't know how anybody can live up there. It's much louder than 80 decibels.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know, but I can't even imagine where are you trying to say to us that the 80 dBA is a misquote of what the EPA or what anyone requires?
It looks to be a misquote by
how much?
by Kinross.
By how
that
much?
states
Huh?
noise level will not exceed 80 dBA. And David, back me up on this.
Well, you have in the paper there that the main exposure to noise level over 70 will cause hearing loss.
Yeah.
Kinross claims that the EPA standard is 80.
80 instead.
So they not only misstate the EPA standard, but they're also letting us know that that decibel level that they're gonna produce is gonna go on constantly. And I think this relates to another issue with the resolution. I think you've got down at the bottom of that resolution, you have options there. And one of the options is to have the ore haul in off-peak hours. Well, 10 PM to 7 AM is off-peak hours. But the research shows that that is when that intermittent noise is most dangerous.
Why are you trying to sleep?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I would strongly suggest that you amend that resolution and take that option off.
Okay, David, thank you.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder about that. That's interesting. Yeah. Any questions or any concerns from the council? And you got that here, what he just said, David said?
Right,
that? Okay.
I'm looking at option of including so many adjustments to the schedule that it makes it not feasible, rather than
That's part of the
limiting
standard.
it.
Yeah. If you require so many adjustments, they're gonna say, it's not gonna make us any money, and they'll stop. So it's a tactic.
Thank you. I wonder if anybody knows how many decibels are put out when engine braking is done, when you're shifting down and, oh my God.
The information is probably there.
Point of information,
Yeah.
shouldn't this gentleman
Well,
come
he
up
could,
and-
David, you could come up and just, instead of sitting on the side, you can always bring a chair up there too.
Okay, so
Just
So-
say who you are for the record and where
yeah,
you're from.
my name's David Kornberg. I live up on Gilmore Trail, up northeast of Fairbanks. I want to read two short pieces. I have a clean copy of the piece that my wife just read, and I will leave a clean copy of that for you all. And I'll leave copies of mine for you all too, because there's information in here that is quite specific and that may be new to you. So the first one is industrial versus commercial trucking. Industrial trucking and commercial trucking are not the same. Ore haul trucks carrying ore from Manh Choh to Fort Knox are not the same as cabs pulling containers from the train yard to the box stores, or water trucks carrying water to people's houses, or GVEA trucks going out to fix outages. Industrial trucking needs industrial haul roads. To my knowledge, there are only two legally designated industrial haul roads in Alaska: the privately owned road at Red Dog Mine and the Klondike Highway. 17 AAC 35.010 and following sections sets out how the state can designate an industrial haul road. This process is long, detailed, and the user of the haul road must initiate it, apply for the process to happen, and pay for it. To my knowledge, AKDOT has never required Kinross to respect and abide by our state laws by going through this process. Can any government official explain to me and to the thousands of federal residents or thousands of local residents whose lives are going to be severely hampered by this proposal why this legal process has not happened? That's the first piece. The second one is called the Twin Manh Choh Mine Road. In order to go into Tetlan and to the Manh Choh mine site, it is now necessary to stop at a checkpoint. Visitors are searched for drugs and alcohol, and only authorized vehicles can proceed on the road. One reason for limiting public access to the beginning of the construction of a new, one reason for limiting public access is the beginning of the construction of a new road from the mine site to the Alaska Highway. The new road appears to have resulted from calculations made by Kinross. With the specifications of the proposed ore haul trucks now publicly available, Kinross has reportedly decided that the size of the ore haul trucks would make vehicle collisions on the existing two-lane road a high risk. The existing road is used by cars, pickup trucks, and other vehicles servicing the village. This normal traffic is like the traffic on the Alaska Highway.
However, traffic on the Alaska Highway also includes large, wide school buses and large, wide RVs. So if the risk of collision with normal traffic, not including school buses and RVs, is so high on the existing two-lane road into Tetlin that a twin road must be constructed, how can anyone justify allowing the proposed ore haul trucks on the Alaska Highway? 96% of the proposed ore haul route is on two-lane rural roads with minimal shoulders, minimal pullouts, and in inclement weather of rain or snow, limited visibility. How can our state officials know about the twin Manh Choh Mine Road and still allow those big friggin' trucks to haul ore on our two-lane highways? If this situation seems dangerous to you, then please do whatever you can to tell Kinross, Pete Gold, and the Alaska Department of Transportation, no ore haul. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone have any comments or concerns or questions? Thank you, David. Oh, you do? You have to
I'm just
speak up?
curious, I'm just curious if there's a website where you have all these things displayed somewhere, so when you
Okay,
when you try to go and tell other people about it, you can refer back to these things.
I think that, Mary, did you post this one? The ore haul trucking noise dangers? Did you ever upload that one? Okay, but the industrial versus commercial trucking? That's on there. Okay, so at least this one is on the ASAH website.
Would you give us the specific website so that the public that's listening can use this?
Yeah, sure. It's www.safealaskahighways.org. Okay,
Thank you.
and I'll leave that card with the document.
Thank you. Leave that with the clerk, please.
Yeah, I'll leave that with the clerk.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Anyone
Okay,
else?
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Hope you enjoyed that. Anyone else for public testimony? Oops.
Aren't we lucky to work with people like this? Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? I've taken enough of your time, but I just want to take under consideration an agenda that our organization is part of the public record. So it takes 2 minutes if I could. I'm here tonight as a spokesman for the Advocates for Safe Alaska Highways. ASA is a gathering of volunteers from Fairbanks, North Pole, Salship, and Delta Junction who have bound together to not stop mining as some would have you believe, but to stop an audacious, unprecedented, illegal, and unsafe attempt of a corporation to unilaterally convert our public highways into their haul roads and do so on your nickel, at you and your family's peril, and do it for decades. Tonight, I respectfully ask for you to consider your responsibility to the residents of your city of North Pole. These North Pole residents, your friends and neighbors, exercised their sovereign power when at the ballot box, they placed their faith in your good judgment and thereby entrusted you with the greatest responsibility to which a public servant can be held accountable: the health and safety of those who have taken an oath to represent. You have taken an oath to represent. You, as members of this city council, are their elected leaders. You are the providers of their quiet enjoyment to live a full and rich life here in the golden heart of Alaska. And above all, you are the protectors of their health and safety. The passing of Resolution 2303 makes a strong and responsible statement to those who put you here that their health and health and safety is your top priority. The ore hauling proposal being considered is anything but safe and is illegal. And until the developer presents a detailed plan as required by law and has proven that it is safe, I respectfully suggest you pass Resolution 2303 and politely tell the developer to return another day with a proposal that is not unprecedented, that is non-threatening in its enormity, that has an acceptable risk profile, and is legal under Alaska law, and above all, has been proven to be safe. On behalf of ASA, I respectfully ask for your support for 2303, and I thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Gary.
you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else for public testimony? Seeing none, public testimony on this ordinance, on this resolution, 2303 is now closed. Yes,
That's one thing.
please come back forward.
Okay.
We're trying to do this,
Yeah, this has to do with the question of the possible alternatives. From very early on, people have said to Kinross, build a mill at the Mancho mine.
mhm.
And Kinross' answer has been, no, it's too expensive. We would have to put in a power station down there because there isn't adequate electricity, et cetera, et cetera. But the facts of the financial strength of Kinross point in the other direction. My understanding is that they take approximately $600 million a year out of the state of Alaska.
Wow.
In their recent statement to their shareholders about the Fort Knox mine, they said they have $5.1 billion of proven reserves in that mine alone. And they are now looking at opening up what a qualified geologist, as Gary Wilkins stated, has said is going to become one of the top gold mines in the world. So from our point of view, we think that their refusal to take part in any kind of upgrade of infrastructure, their refusal to consider a mill at the Mancho mine site is all about money. That's all it's about. They don't care about the people. The only thing that they're interested in is that the infrastructure allows them to do the ore haul proposal, and they will deal with whatever else happens. And there is an interesting part of their history here. They had a gold mine in Ghana, and a truck carrying explosives for that gold mine in Ghana exploded in a village, flattened the entire village, and killed 17 people. Kinross owned that gold mine, which they have since closed. They owned that gold mine, and their response to that event was, we were not the truckers. That was the trucking company's responsibility. And so that seems to me to be what they're doing with Peak Gold, which was recently created, and with Black Gold Express. They're putting themselves in a position where they can say, all right, so one of our trucks jackknifed and demolished a school bus and killed 14 school children. We're not responsible. That, I think, is the kind of company we're dealing with. And that is why I think a resolution like this is so important. It's so important for the people who live on the route to say, no, we do not accept this. This can't happen.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
This is the last call. Anyone else for public testimony? Now public testimony is closed. Thank you. So who wants to push this forward tonight? The
There.
maker. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I think we've heard some really valuable testimony given tonight. And I think what we're setting here is a precedence for an elected body to go on record stating our opposition to to a single plan being presented to the state of Alaska. And I think it's critical that we pass it tonight.
Yes.
And that we don't get bogged down with too many details, because we can always come back with other resolutions asking for specific detailed reports or plans. So I'm speaking out of concern for your request for requesting additional reports from Kinross. That's going to have to come, I think, from at a higher level. But we're at least getting our legislature attention, saying we have a problem here, and it needs to be looked at more closely. What I would like to do is incorporate some of the information that was shared tonight. As I said, my strategy in adjusting the hauling schedule is to make them rethink is how feasible is this plan to put that many trucks on there. So what I'd like for the council to consider is in the alternative, number 3, to add the following language.
Madam Clerk, would you please bring up the resolution 2303 so we can see what Pro Tem is coming up with here, please?
So item number 3, adjusting the ore hauling schedule to avoid peak commute periods of time. What I'd like to do is add a semicolon in there, or maybe we'll just make it a period. I mean, a comma at this time. I'm sorry, a comma. And then add almost identical language saying adjusting the ore hauling schedule to include mandated nighttime quiet periods.
Include mandated
nighttime quiet periods. And identical language, adjusting the ore hauling schedule to meet the EPA 70 dBA maximum
DBA
daily
would be little dB.
dBA,
Yeah,
little
little
dBA,
dBA, Madam Clerk. Decibels.
maximum daily average.
Yeah, thanks.
I think with those 3 adjustments to the ore hauling schedule, they're going to find it very problematic to proceed as presented, and it will cause them to be thinking about noise pollution, the impact on quality of life for our residents, and then of course we could follow up with all the information about the impacts of noise on health and heart conditions there.
You have to come back to the chair, sir. You have to be on the record. It's through the chair here.
Okay.
Please.
David Kornberg, Fairbanks, Alaska.
Yes.
I would suggest the wording to include a mandated nighttime quiet period. In the research that we did, it was 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Okay. A mandated nighttime quiet period.
Period, no S on period. Yeah.
But that's reasonable.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
And one last thing, it's usually capital D, capital B, small a.
Yeah,
And do you all understand what that adjusted means?
I know what dBA is. I know decibels.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what the A refers to is a standard that takes into account the varying sensitivity of different people to sound. And that's the kind of thing that Kinross doesn't want to hear anything about or think about or do anything about.
Okay.
Because air
Mrs.
brakes.
Welch, you have a question while David's still there? No, okay. Thank you, David.
Okay, and then additional language to be inserted as a new 5 and moving 5 down would be to extend construction of a twin ore haul road for all of the Alaska Highway and the Richardson Highway.
When, say it again.
Sorry, Steve's Highway. You're out of North Pole, but we can do the Alaska Highway. We could put the Steve's Highway in there too. That would really make it fun, but.
You just called it Alaska
I want you to
Highways.
repeat what you just said.
That language was extend construction of the twin ore haul road for all of the Alaska Highway and the Richardson Highway. And so Alaska Highway is actually the highway that goes towards the border towards Tetlin to Canada, whereas the Richardson Highway goes from Valdez up to Fairbanks. So those are the corridors that we're addressing, but we could certainly at the council's desire include the Steese Highway, because that is another state highway that is impacted significantly.
Mrs. Welch, you got something to add?
Instead of saying the Alaska Highway and adding the Steves Highway, why didn't you say Alaskan highways? That way it would cover everyone that they might want to be.
I think people would recognize where they live better by if they say, oh, it's Alaska Highway, it's the
Specific
Richland
roads.
Highway, oh, it's the Steves Highway. It's more personal rather than this generic highway somewhere in Alaska.
Any more to your,
So the Alaska, Richardson and Steves highways. Those are my recommended changes from the testimony. I now ask my fellow council members for their input and suggestions.
can we look at what's below that? Is there anything below that?
Uh,
After item 6?
So that is the new item 6, unless the other council members have language to
I was
insert.
trying to see, was there any other methodologies that may prove feasible? Yeah.
We could, I would also change that to say may prove feasible and more safe for the residents,
Simple and safer.
for the motoring.
Safer,
Just say, use the
Safer.
word
For the
safer.
motoring
Maybe-
public.
Maybe prove feasible and safer for the motoring public.
Yeah.
I would suggest taking out motoring because the rest of us by the side of the highway
That's okay
and
for the
everything else
public.
would also be
Oh, for
impacted.
sure. Would include tourists, visitors, commerce,
Bicyclists, all that.
bicyclists, walkers.
This, David, you're.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, could I be a co-sponsor on this?
Oh,
please?
Yeah, we're
absolutely.
we're all said
I
in the
think
beginning.
unless you say no, you're gonna be added as a
You're gonna be added
co-sponsor.
at the top.
We already are.
There you go.
Thank you, Mrs. Clerk.
Mr. Cromer, you have your.
I was just Googling the DBA. It's a small D and
It is a small D.
a big A and a big B, big A.
Yeah, I know that from aviation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
backwards, yeah.
Little D, big
Little
B
D.
and A.
There you go, because
And a big
Big
A.
big A. Mhm.
There we go.
This is
Thank
Welch.
you.
So now that we put in the nighttime parameters and the
Boys.
bigger roads and all that stuff, did we have a thing in there talking about maybe limits on during peak hours, especially school?
That is on the commute time. It says, the commute, adjusting the or hauling schedule to avoid peak commute periods of time, which would include workers and school children. Those are commute periods of time.
Oh, we didn't add that part.
That's
Is
already,
that
it's,
assumed?
yeah, it's the very first one in 3. It's, we added to 3 the 2 other adjustments.
You asking like, should we put time frame?
Yeah, give them a time limit
You
for
wanted a
responding.
specific of, for school buses, for school schedule. The wording that you just
Does the
said,
peak commute periods of time include that?
that's what I was assuming.
Possibly, but I can tell you there's a lot of school buses that are not. I go to school by 7:30 in the morning and I see a lot of school buses that would not be considered peak time because there's not that many people out on the road at that time. But school buses run almost an hour before school starts.
Commute and,
Route. Yeah, they start at
student and
6:20.
student transportation periods of time to avoid peak commute and student transportation periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
You get periods of time there already. So,
There you go. Thank you. That's a good adjustment.
What do you call teamwork?
We are a great team. Andrew, do you want to add anything?
Anything
I
else?
think
Sir?
you've covered pretty much everything. Yeah.
I appreciate your support, everyone, on this. On the council and also in the audience, I think it's courageous for us to take this stand, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
And I venture to say, I hope that when we go to Juneau 2 weeks from now, that they'll understand we're bringing that with us too. We'll kind of have a chance. I might talk to you, Gary and David offline later, okay?
And if you could provide the clerk copies of all your documentations that you referred to, that would help us when we go down to Juneau and we meet with the interior delegation to say, these are important questions that our community needs to have answered, and for them to use their legislative power to wield influence to get the results that we've been asking for. So. I would also extend an invitation from the Delta City Administrator. You were an observer tonight. Is there anything that you would like us to include in our resolution that would help support your community in Delta?
I think you have encompassed the things that apply to you.
We stole this from Fairbanks, and you can steal this from North Pole.
We've improved upon it. We need to all stand firm on this whole structure.
We've got no doubt, it's gotta be a unified front. I mean, we don't have any other roads. We only have one road.
Yes.
That's
So
it.
this is 100 yards from City Hall.
Yes.
We all know what it's like when there's an accident on the highway and traffic backs up for a short period of time with a vehicle that could be easily towed off the road. You put this size of vehicle and weight on there, and we're waiting for heavy equipment to be in place to get it off the road, let alone the damage that may have been caused by that and the loss of life and the access of EMT personnel to that site and back to the medical facilities. It's just mind-boggling.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, but of course,
I just want to add to this whole discussion here. I must say that over the last few weeks, or by the last few months, where this has been up, I was very skeptical about your project. To be honest with you, I was not going to sign on to this, but I must say you made a believer out of me. The information seems to be very solid. The time and effort that you have put in to find real facts, not just feelings, because a lot of times we see people out there that lead with feelings and they don't have the facts to back it up. And my hat's off to you. I'm happy to be signed on to this one too, and I think we should call the question.
Mr. Wilkins, before I call the question, I'll say when the tomes of history are written, there might be an asterisk with your name next to it, okay? Thank you. Madam Clerk, call the question.
All right, Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Clack,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
But of course, yes. Anyone wish to change? Seeing none, congratulations there. Resolution 2303 passed. Madam Clerk, that pushes us into council comments. Item 13, who's first, please?
Mrs. Clack.
Thank you for the resolution. Thanks for that we worked all together on this, and I wish everybody a safe trip home tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Keller.
So I've had multiple conversations concerning the Mancho mine with various members of the public on both sides of this. And it's been interesting to hear both sides and to hear the passion on both sides, right? We as Alaskans, we love to see, I'm transplanted 4 years. Anyways, we love to see our resources developed, right? I grew up in North Idaho mining lumber. That was huge. So I grew up watching this stuff. But we need to do it efficiently and effectively. Now, watching this resolution come to pass has been really interesting and inspiring of how we need to come together as public and elected officials and to really see change. What's really sad is that it's taken us almost 2 years to get to this point of saying enough is enough. We need to see change. Imagine if the company at hand would have gone to the state and said, hey, we're thinking about expanding. Let's think about expanding the railroad. How much closer would it actually be to being completed by now, right? Or at least in the earmark of the governor and the elected body in Juneau. So my hope is that this is a awakening call saying we need to do things better in Alaska. It's not just enough to develop our resources, but we need to do it efficiently and effectively. And we need to look for the public health of the citizens. So with that, thank you for public testimonies tonight. It's definitely been better, right? A little unorthodox for parliament procedures, but you know, who cares sometimes, right? We got things done, we got it accomplished, and I look forward to seeing how this affects the community.
Thank you, Mrs. Welch.
With all the safety and information that we have been given tonight, I think I will also take it back to our local people. I do duty every day in front of Hunter Elementary School. I see bus drivers that have absolutely no idea about what 25 miles means, much less what a blinking 20 miles an hour means. And yes, I have gone to the point, since I happen to have the phone number for the dispatcher, called in and asked, I said, do you have speedometers on your vehicles out there? Please have them slow down. I asked the person that was a driver, I said, do you talk to your fellow drivers when you're back at the barn? And they go, no, we don't get to do this much, but the person you want to talk to is standing right behind you. He happened to have a monitor with him. And so hopefully those buses that I have seen out there just hauling their tail end down our roads where our kids are coming into school have learned, have gotten a lesson in slowing down like that. And it goes for parents too. You know, the time that you go in with 30 miles an hour coming into my little roundabout to drop off your kids, you're going to kill a kid or kill me that's out there in the middle of this if you don't slow down. Yet I can promise you, you're not gonna save much more than 10 seconds on your total travel if you go between 15 versus 20 and you're going 100 yards. It doesn't give you any savings at all. It just creates that. So everybody out there, please look out for our students, look out for each other, you know, when you're driving, especially in school zones. That comes from somebody who's been out there for the last 21 years in front of Hunter. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Skips.
Yes, I just want to say thank you for public testimony and thank you for the presentation. Very eye-opening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer.
Yeah, I want to say the same thing. Thank you for your testimony. It was eye-opening for me. And I'm just thinking about me driving to Fairbanks every day to go to work, and then, you know, those big old trailers have to stop by the railroad track, and sometimes it gets kind of busy in that area. So I don't know, that's another point to think of, is those railroad stops as well. Would be inconvenience for the people who are trying to commute. But thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you, everyone, for this collaborative effort. I'm sure the maker of Robert's Rules of Order is rolling over in his grave tonight. We certainly stretched those rules throughout the evening, but I think the end result is a document that I think is going to be a wake-up call to our neighbors and our friends in Juneau that we need to stop and think carefully about what we're doing here. I have always been very concerned about a business plan that it operates on so many assumptions of everything working perfectly on the highways when the driving public is so unpredictable in their behaviors driving. Not saying that they are irresponsible, but there are so many things that can go wrong in our environment, in our weather conditions, in our roads, and then adding the mix of these trucks and the amount of delays and accidents that would incur, and then suddenly we pull the plug on and say the human cost is too much. Kinross, you have to stop, and they're going to say, we've already spent $500 million on this project. We're not going to stop now. We're going to sue you for damages. So I think this is our way of saying, before we get too far down the road and they have, invested so much in here that they're going to hold us, the state, responsible, or the contractors responsible for the accidents on the road. That's what that piece of knowledge tonight about shirking responsibilities for the endangering the public onto their contracted drivers is very concerning to me. So thank you, everyone, and be safe going home tonight and every day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. So I'll follow the convention of something we didn't talk about tonight. So usually as a mayor, we get calls from constituents who think they're our constituents, but they live outside of our boundaries. But they want someone to listen to them and take an action. So yesterday on Sunday, I had received such an email, and this morning I was trying and I finally got in touch, and I'll just say to Neva. So I told her that I cannot weigh in on an ordinance that's been placed by the borough, but I told her who she could talk to at the borough about it. And it seems like that some of the things that are happening is because of inflation. So she was concerned about the fact that the neighborhood she lives in, they're looking at a multi-$1,000 increase to take care of the roads there. We're talking about road maintenance and things because they're in one of those road service areas. So her testimony was that no sooner than they had gotten hit with all these inflation rates, she gets a letter from the borough saying the overall recent inflation on food, transportation, and shelter made the ordinance where they had to put this out because they're working class people that work at the borough need to have the ability to make a living. And of course, she says, well, that's fine, but what about the working middle class people such as themselves that have to pay for their own families? They can't afford another increase. And they say to make this past year's food, electric, fuel, and medical expenses makes it even more difficult to make ends meet. So even if wages aren't keeping up, the only thing I could suggest to the lady is that even us as a city, we have to look and live within our means the best we can. And sometimes it just doesn't do us any good to know that we're not competitive, or that, like last winter, we had a big surprise, almost a $630,000 hit that came out of reserves, which doesn't sound like a lot to some of you folks from Fairbanks, but for the city of North Pole, it's quite a bit. So what they're saying is the residents are standing up against it, are saying, we won't have any choice soon but to make a choice to quit living here, to move out of North Pole. They're not in my city, but they still consider it, because it's 99705, to live out and go to a less expensive state. And at the current rate of taxes being charged, they said, we're not receiving the services. And I kind of understand what they're saying. Like, you come out here and you grade a road in August, but it rains the very next day for the rest of August. And so it didn't do any good to spend all that time and money because it's all fruitless. And I said, yeah, I've seen that happen before. So there's many things they're asking the borough to take another look at. But at least I was helpful to put them in the right direction, to tell them who the person who is presiding officer of the assembly, who to go to in the rural service area, and if necessary, who to go talk to in the governor's office. So you never know where these people are coming from, because they want you to listen. That's part of what I used to say way back when in 18, trying to do the most for all. So with that, Madam Clerk, I'm finished with my comments, and we go to item 14, call for adjournment. Motion to adjourn at 9:45.
All right.
Thank you. Good night. Thanks for coming.
Good night, everyone.
Copy says, hey, don't forget